Good morning, AD, and welcome to your topic on the Loyalists. I see Miss Holmes is having a wonderful time subbing for me. As you have learned, the American Revolution was a war that happened mainly because the American colonists were tired of paying taxes they felt were unfair. So they wanted to be independent, but there were some people who wished to remain with the king. These were the Loyalists. Now, who were the Loyalists? These people were American colonists who loved being under the king, and they wanted to be ruled by the king, and they did not want independence. They came from all walks of life. Some were rich, some were farmers, some were merchants, some were doctors, but they all had one thing in common. They pledged allegiance to the king. Many loyalists were actually African American slaves because the British promised to free them. So they fought on the side of the British. Now, why would you remain loyal if you were paying taxes that were unfair? Well, that's a good question. Many felt that the taxes were not unfair. They felt that they were doing their part because the British had protected them in the French-Indian War. Some felt that the British Army could not be defeated, whilst others loved the money that they were making trading with the British in tobacco and cotton. And some felt a religious or moral obligation that they should not go against the king because the king were hand-chosen or hand-picked by God. Now, if you stand up for a cause, sometimes you can be treated badly if others do not agree. This is called persecution. And these loyalists were persecuted in their colonies by their enemies, the patriots or the rebels. They were attacked from rebel patriots. They were not allowed to come into shops and buy goods. They were under constant threat during the war. Many of them had to leave their country and go to Canada and other places and the Bahamas. Some of them lost their homes. Some of them lost their businesses. Some of their children were not allowed to go to school. Some of them were not even allowed to see doctors because they were being persecuted. They were being pushed out of the community. Some people were even kidnapped. They tarred them and they put feathers in them. And when the feathers came out, so did their skin. This was a horrible form of persecution. Some loyalists were so angry that they either joined the British Army or they formed their own group just to fight back at the rebels, just to stand their ground. Now, a lot of loyalists got tired of the treatment, as you would too. Imagine being in a world where your life is totally shut down. Similar to COVID, but only it's because of your belief that you are out of the community, that you're not allowed to participate in the community and live life as normal. So after the bad treatment by the rebels, the loyalists began to leave the colonies. Many of them moved to East Florida. At that time, Florida was not a part of the United States, but was actually owned by the King of England. A treaty or a contract or agreement this is called the Versailles Treaty. It was signed in 1783 and it returned East Florida to Spain. So when that happened, Spain gave the loyalists 18 months to get out of East Florida and move wherever it is that they wanted to go. So they were again looking for a home, in search of a home. So Sir Guy Carleton, British Commander-in-Chief, suggested that they go to the Bahamas. Now, you may say, why would they go to the Bahamas? There were so many choices. They could go to Canada, which was owned by the British back then. They could go to England, where they used to live, where the king lived. They probably could go to other places as well around the world. However, people suggested that they go to the Bahamas. Now, why would they choose the Bahamas? Well, there are several reasons that made the Bahamas a great place to go. First of all, the main reason, the Bahamas was owned by Britain. Okay? And so therefore, they wouldn't have to worry about being persecuted. Second of all, the Bahamas had a warm climate. This was something that they looked forward to because a lot of them were farmers and a lot of them were used to the warm climate. Another thing was good soil for farming. A lot of them wanted to have plantation. They made their money off of cotton and tobacco off of that farming. So they wanted a place where they could farm. In the Bahamas, available land was also an issue that made the Bahamas a great place to go, because a lot of the land were not taken up by anybody, so it was just empty, waiting for somebody to come and live there. And finally, the land was free or cheap. To persuade people to move to Bahamas, they actually started renting out land or giving away land to the heads of the household. And for black people, this was a big deal because they could actually become free and obtain land. Now, you have learned the reasons why they considered coming to the Bahamas. Were you listening? Were you really listening? We'll see when Ms. Holmes leads you into the loyalty, not liberty game. Get ready.